All right, g'day everyone. This is Expand the Phantom podcast. We're from the website chroniclechamber.com, and of course, you can subscribe to this podcast through YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed enough that you can give us a rating so that others can help others to find us. Look, as we get towards episode 300, as we creep along towards episode 300, this is episode 299B. Not sure which episode of the podcast is actually released is. We'll have to do the maths on that sometime. But anyway, we're going to do episode 299B, and this is reviewing the latest comics from around the world. We've got a couple from Australia, but also going to bounce around the United States, Sweden, and Germany tonight. Unfortunately, we had certainly timed recording this with towards the end of January so that we would have Frew's 2025 annual in our hands and having read that. But due to some production delays, I understand binding in particular with that book is causing some problems. And so it's been delayed. And so we're going to have to do a 299C, which is very exciting because that's something that we might borrow a few things from Frew, but they've never had a C. So looking forward to, I'm actually a little bit excited about that, to be honest.
When I agree. When we were talking about it in planning, it's like, oh, see, we've never done that before, and yeah, I think we all got a little bit excited. Yeah,
It doesn't take much.
no,
It's simple, man. Anyway,
very
look, well, as I say, thanks for joining us. I'm Dan. I'm joined by, as you've already heard, Stephen and Jermaine. Guys, it's been a week since we have released a podcast, but moments since we last spoke. How are you guys going today?
Well, it's been a long trip. It's only been moments, but I've had to change areas, change studios. The boys are off to bed. Angie's got a bit to do tomorrow, so she wants to head off to bed. So I'm back in the soundproof chamber.
And
awesome.
we didn't say with yours, Germ, that you're in a slightly different recording position as well.
Yes, yes, I'm in a different area as well. So it's my phantom room, but it is now having a dual functionality. For those who have come in late, we're having another baby, and so I've had to pack up my phantom room. So probably for the next year or so until I sort out a better location. I may be going in the car with Stephen, or I may be going in different rooms in different areas of the house as well. So yeah, it's all rather interesting and exciting.
And I like how your background really emphasizes the dual purpose of your room. Half of you is purple, or half of the room is purple. The other half is like just a normal neutral color. So you can see maybe have phantom room on that side and the baby on the other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So yeah.
obviously, huge congratulations on the baby news, but yeah, massive commiserations on losing the phantom room in the short term.
Yeah, I said to without going into too much details, I said to the wife, I said, look, I will happily sacrifice the room, but it either means we need to extend the house and build another bedroom or two on, which then gives me my phantom room back, or if we buy another house, I said if we go down that path, that I'm only going to give up the room if I can get a dedicated office and phantom room. So I may come out of this better with a bigger room with an air conditioner, which would be quite nice. It's like a sauna in this room sometimes with the door closed and all that in the middle of summer. So I might actually come out of it quite well with having my home office in my phantom room, which would be quite cool, I reckon.
But then you
Mate,
have added mortgage either from your extensions or from the bigger house. So
Yeah,
less phantom stuff. Plus the extra child.
yeah, plus the
oh,
extra
look,
child. I think the extra child will be the killer, but yeah.
I think if I started dictating to my wife about extra rooms in houses for my Phantom collection, I'd be lucky to come out of that alive, let alone Anyway, we're padding in our episodes and we're padding in our introduction now. Look, one really important thing, we're sort of joking around getting to episode 300. That's because we want to make it easy for people to find when you go back over time to find, because episode 300 is going to be a cracker, and we're pretty excited about this. Mike Manley, Jeff Weigel as current Comics Kingdom King Features artists, and Tony DePaul, like the holy trinity of Phantom creators at the moment, are very generous men, and they've agreed to meet with us to record episode 300. So I'm very excited about that, and a huge thank you to those three gentlemen for agreeing to sit down at the same time and talk to us, and indeed even more so open it up to the fans. So information about how you as a viewer, as a listener, can get involved and be part of the recording of that podcast is on the website. It does involve you setting your diaries, or writing in your diaries, penciling in the date Saturday, 8th of February, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's I guess that's New York, and that sort of time zone, and all the details about that are on our website, how you can get involved. But our Patreons will have first access to that, and we very much value their support, and that'll be the way that another way that we can thank them for their support. So very much looking forward to that one as we get closer to it. All right, that said, let's get into reviewing some of the comic books that we've seen from around the world at the moment. And these are the two from Frew that we're going to be able to have a look at. The Christmas special, issue 1986, and then 1987, which was the first one that came out in 2025 here in Australia. And if you're on YouTube, you'll obviously see scans of these and that sort of thing come past as Germ does his editing magic. To discuss, before we go into the stories that are inside issue 1986, can we have a quick chat about Alex Tripp's cover? Where I think there's no secret on the podcast that I do love a Christmas cover, and Frew have really leaned into that the last few years, and I love what Alex Tripp has done with this. We've already discussed it, I suppose, on the last podcast where it featured heavily or well in our best of 2024 cover. But just to focus on it as we review the comic, guys, you enjoy the cover?
Absolutely. Love a good Christmas cover. Last year we didn't have a Christmas cover. It was more running down the street. It was a Phantom, being rough on a roughneck who mugged a lady or tried to nick off a handbag or something like that.
It was our Die Hard Christmas cover because there was decorations in the windows. It was at Christmas time.
Yeah, that was about it. Yeah, Die Hard. Yeah, I get you. the Clayton's Christmas movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed. I think it was great. I had it in one of my best covers for the year for 2024. You can go back and watch our podcast and our discussion on that as well. It was a very good issue. It's nice and thick. The cover's thick. The pages are thick. The printing, I think, is good. It's not excellent. It's still on a poorer quality paper, but it's better than what we have seen, and I think the colors have come up quite well. The problem with some of these stories is there's a lot of nighttime scenes, but I think even they have kind of come up quite well. Like I'm looking at page 82, 83 and stuff like that. So overall, I think Frew will be very happy with this. I think they've done a great job. Alex has knocked the cover out of the park. The printing's done well. Just from like a cosmetic type of thing, they've put with like when the stories finish, they've got a buffer page, which is like, a bit of advertising and stuff like that, which gives a little bit of gaps between the stories. So I think things like that just show a little bit of care, and I think they've done quite well with that.
Yeah, and just going back to the cover and Alex's cover, comments. I may have made these comments in the past, and I know at a Comic-Con when I had a print and I happened to put it down while I was looking at something else, and someone goes, "Oh, that's a Jamie Johnson." I said, "Well, actually, no, that's Alex Tripp," and they're going, "Oh, right." But in this case, the way I think Alex's Phantom is becoming his own. He's bringing his own style out of it now. When I'm looking at his depiction of the Phantom, it's not like a Jamie Johnson Phantom. He's becoming more refined, particularly in the faces where I'm really seeing it. It's making his own unique Phantom. It's still quintessentially the Phantom, but now it's a more unique style. Even these fantastic artists who been in the game for a while, and Alex has done some wonderful stuff. Always developing, and it's great to see. Great to see artists always getting better.
I think that's a very
My
good point that you made there, Steve.
my favorite part of the cover is Devil leaning out the side of the sleigh with his and
With his tongue out. It's fun, isn't it?
all right. Well, I agree with what you said there, Germ, about the quality of the book, and it is a really good publication, all told. Steve, you've put together some of your famous blurbs for the story. Basically, the storyline here is the conclusion of the Rack and Ruin saga, which we've seen in the past couple of Christmas issues. Actually, I think there's a total of 7 stories in the saga, and the last 3 in this book. So I might pass over to you, Steve, just to go over the synopsis for those 3 stories: the Breakout, Dungeons Undone, and then the Journey Home.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So we start off with the Breakout, which of course is written by Tony DePaul with art by Mike Manley. Now, after resting and overcoming the vision of the fire skeleton that was first appeared in the Longo Forest, the Phantom makes his way to Graveline's prison in fascist Rhodia with Hero and Devil to break Savannah out. But first, he stops off at the jungle veterinarian that Old Man Moz spoke about in his chronicle, and provided them, the vet and her husband, with instructions should he arrive on their doorstep again. The Phantom moves now from there. The Phantom moves silently around the prison in his attempts to rescue Savannah. But will Savannah keep her cool, or will she blow the whole plan wide open? And what does Devil sense off the path? What does he sense off the path? Then in Dungeons Undone, once again by Tony DePaul and Mike Manley, with the Bandar Nation at his side and the Jungle Patrol on call, the Phantom and Savannah set out to free the prisoners unjustly imprisoned by Rhodia's fascist regime. Will Savannah keep her temper in check so that they can make a clean getaway? Excuse me. Or will a stray bullet ensure that all that Moz predicted will come true, no matter what the Phantom does to thwart it? And finally, The Journey Home by Tony DePaul, Mike Manley, Bret Blevins, and Jeff Weigel. With the captives freed, the Phantom, Savannah, Diana, and the Bandar Nation make their journey home to the Skull Cave. But they're not the only ones heading back to the deep woods. Kit has returned from the mountain city to pay a visit home. President Luaga has also arrived on the border and is ensuring that the captives can find asylum in Bengala. Is everyone happy to be home or to be heading home? Or will a throwaway line send someone away yet again?
So, Steve, you actually went back and read these stories, which, I'm assuming some fans who read them on Comics Kingdom don't. So, reading it as a comic, what was your experience like?
It was great. It actually flowed really, really well. And there's one part, and I think it's in the Breakout story, where Devil bares his teeth at the Phantom. And I remember reading it in the day, saying that's a weird thing. And once again, reading, if I just read it in the comic, that's a weird thing. But if you read the whole story, like the whole 7 parts or whatever it is, earlier on, the Phantom actually says to Devil, now, if I start to go this wrong way, you make sure you get me back on the right path. And it's just like a fun little thing, as you're talking to your dog, you make sure you do the right thing. But when the Phantom's wanting to head out the main gate, that's when Devil starts baring his teeth. And so Devil is communicating with the Phantom the only way he knows how, and gets his attention, draws him away from the main gate, and gets him going off the side and diverting the prophecy yet again.
That's interesting how you make mention of Devil doing that. I don't think I picked that up as much reading it from the Comics Kingdom. And I wonder.
Oh no, I definitely didn't the first time through. And when I read that, I thought, oh, hang on.
I wonder if that's because when newspaper stories were first created, you have your serials with your TVs, with your episodes, and stuff like that, where you had to wait for the next part. Where now in today's society, we're not trained like that. We're the microwave generation where, instead of waiting a good hour for dinner to be cooked, let's just chuck it in the microwave for 2 minutes. If you want to watch a season of a TV show, you can binge watch it and watch it all in one night. You don't have to wait 6 months to watch one episode every week. So I wonder if a lot of people that tend to complain about this, I wonder if it's also got to do with the fact that they're kind of untrained on how to read a newspaper story.
Well, there's nowhere else that it exists, is it? And it's
Mm.
only getting worse. I mean, you talk about a microwave generation, TikTok generation. You watch any young person scrolling through reels or TikTok videos, that sort of thing. If it doesn't grab their attention in the first 3 to 5 seconds, they're not going to watch the whole 30-second clip. So, yeah, that sort of attention span business is only going to get worse. That's where it's so good then that there are still creators who play the long game and put these things in and refer back to them, like what you're talking about there, Stephen. There's no doubt that Tony DePaul had that scripted and he had that planned, and was able to refer back to it. There is the reward for effort when you do go back and read it. This is where it's so good that Frew do collect these in the bigger books like this, and we've got the opportunity. I'd love to see the whole Rack and Ruin saga, all of the stories come together in a single book. Frew won't do it anytime soon because they've obviously just published these in the last couple of years. But maybe separately, pull it out and put it as a trade paperback. People would love that. I certainly would. And it'd do justice to the
Yeah.
thing.
Regal did it with the Python saga,
Yeah. Yeah.
with the death of Diana Palmer
Yeah.
Walker. Frew did that as well. That was probably one of the last things that Jim Shepard did, which was actually kind of made sense and was good. He printed the first story and then he's like, oh, hang on, this is going to be a long-standing arc. And then he waited, and then did it as a whole 120-page story or something. So maybe in 10 years' time, Frew will republish this, whether they do it as 200-page thick issues like this, or whether they do it as a trade paperback of 200, 250.
I hope they don't wait too long. 5 years will probably be enough.
It's worth noting that across this story, obviously, it's almost entirely a Mike Manley drawn book, but we know that in the last story, The Journey Home, he had some health problems and had to have other artists step in. Bret Blevins, which is a mate of his, stepped in for a little while, and Jeff Weigel actually finished the story. And it's always it's always a point of interest, I suppose, to go through and find the panel where the artist changed hands. And I think these three gents have got a distinctive enough art style that you can tell pretty easily where that happened. It's a shame that Mike didn't get the chance to finish it all out by himself, because, he's done some great work in this. You talk about the night scenes and the shadow scenes, Germ. Even some of the Phantom, the one that you had on screen just then. What date was that? Going through Dungeons Undone at the moment. The Phantom stalking through the shadows. Like, the artwork
Early April.
I mean, that's just a random panel through that I've plucked as you were flicking through it. Every page, I think there's standout panels. There's standout profiles of the Phantom. Mike's really done a great job on this, and I feel for him that he didn't manage to finish the whole book out.
Well, which you'll see if you read the story. So he actually didn't get to draw how the Phantom died as well. So that's, he built up, years and years and years, and then he unfortunately didn't get to do that. That might be a blessing in disguise. That way they can't, fans can't blame him, and you can just say, "Hey, I didn't draw it."
But overall, I think now that they've been able to read the story in its entirety and not have to be dragged along for a good couple of years, it's a great story. And you can see the action happening. Like, that's always a critique of the daily story. There's not enough action. You read it as a comic book, there's plenty happening.
Yeah.
And the word consequential is being thrown around a lot these days, if you watch the news. But this is a massively consequential story in terms of fandom stories. By the time you look at the whole Rack and Ruin saga, it's not in this particular book. It was in the Christmas issue last year, which was the fandom dying you referred to there, Germ. But even right to the very last panel of this story, we see the fandom musing on his skull throne about his own end point and the vision that Moz had for him being buried, not in the skull cave. And that's how the 21st fandom ends. We spoke in 299A about how Tony DePaul has quite deliberately done that so that he has been able to have the chance to write how the 21st fandom meets his end or where he is buried, and to close that out. So in terms of importance in phantom lore, this is a massively, dare I say it, consequential story.
While you're talking about consequences, we've just gone through and we've talked about this bit here where the Phantom, as the unknown commander, is talking through to the Jungle Patrol, and hey, yeah, we're in Gravelands. You need to come out and talk about it. And then Wurubu and the team are like, John X, John X, John X, John X, and they're raising John X. And what we didn't know when we first reviewed this is that Tony DePaul was going to create a new story with John X and, in a sense, solve the John X problem that he originally created. But again, it's, a thread has led into another story. So it's kind of interesting that, this is from 2023. It's, we only had to wait 6 months to a year before we kind of got that thread to be reopened rather than a decade-long thread in some situations with what Tony DePaul's been writing, but it's worth just making mention of that.
May have saved one of the best for last in terms of the issues of the year for last year from Frew. Now, from the conclusion that, the last 3 chapters of an epic saga to, I guess, some bite-sized stories in 1987, it's a bit chalk and cheese, the jump from 1986 to 1987 in terms of the content of the books. So we've gone from, the last 3 stories in an epic saga from the current King Features official lawmakers to some popcorn from 1970s Italy.
You've really done that nicely, Dan. I don't think you could ever say that even nicer. You really polished that well.
Could we say that? Could we talk about the cover first? I really like the cover. Marcelo's done a great job with this color. I like the crocodile that he's fighting, just with the little things in like the water details with the little skulls, which you can see out near its tail. And then on the back, you've got, like a bit of a collage, which kind of all warps together with the other various stories and stuff like that. I'm not quite sure on the Phantom on this cover. The Phantom looks a little bit weird, like his face and his shoulders and stuff. But one of the things that I really like about his work is that he can merge elements together so they work together. Like, he did it with the Enter the Phantom story, which was printed last year, which we talked about a lot, which was Matt Kime's story. He's done, the different generation lore elements in here, and he's done it with this one as well. So I just wanted to give Marcelo a bit of a shout out that I'm enjoying the composition of his covers.
And the colours are quite striking too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely good to see him getting a bit more regularity in the Venom comics. I was a bit surprised when I went back to realise that the cover that he did in 2024 was only his 4th ever Frew cover, and I guess now we've got his 5th, and they're starting to come in a bit more quick succession, which is nice to see because he's a very talented artist.
I also believe he's got his first interior Phantom story in the annual as well, which will be in our C issue, which we can review later.
Looking forward to seeing that. See, there you go. We're going to have talked about Marcelo in 3 podcasts out of 4 in a row. So, yes, really starting to make a bit of a comeback.
Might have to get him on for a podcast episode later.
Do that. We have to do that.
Yeah.
There's actually 4 stories, two I guess traditional, if you like, comic book stories, and also a couple of 2-page prose stories, which is interesting. So let's start with the island of Mandi.
Okay, The Isle of Rada Mandi by unknown Fratelli Spada creator and Giorgio Cambiotti and Lamberto Lombardi. How can they be unknown when we've got those two there? Was that
They're the
They're the
artists.
artists, and
they're
the
the artists?
writer is
Oh, the
unknown.
writer is unknown. Help if
Yeah.
I read my comments beforehand. The Phantom of 1740 is on the trail of pirate raiders who are led by the beast of a man, Rada Mandi. They have been invading the coast of Bengala, and their latest raid includes kidnapping the governor's daughter, Claire. After donning a disguise, the Phantom is able to infiltrate the pirate's lair. But will he be able to leave with the governor's daughter while putting an end to Rada Mandi's reign of terror?
Well, you'd have to read it to find out the answer to that question.
That's exactly right.
Nice cliffhanger there. What are your thoughts? Let's start with the artwork. We know that Giorgio and Lamberto have drawn this one. What are your thoughts of the artwork of this one, Jim?
I like the artwork. There's a lot of cyberry in it, which is to be expected. We probably say that every time we review one of these stories. I also I like the printing quality. It's very bright. I think they've done a good job in coloring the Phantom from red to purple or blue, kind of in a couple of panels. It looks a little bit bluish, but I think whoever did the coloring, I know it wasn't Ivan, so I believe it was staff at like an internal free coloring done. But I thought they've done quite a good job at the coloring, so I did want to make mention of that. The artwork, look, artwork's always good when you're talking about the French stories. The story, it's
This
not
one's
the
Italian, isn't it?
worst. Yeah, French, Italian. Yeah, sorry. They were published in Italy and France, so that's why I sometimes
Okay.
get them. The story, it's not the worst Fratelli Spada story I have read, but it's not by far the best I've read either.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. When I see or hear that it's going to be an Italian story or a Fratelli Spada story, I just think, oh no. But that's unfortunately being unfair. This story, while it's not setting the world on fire, is a good, simple adventure.
Yeah.
It's a nice breather. It's a bit of fun. Does it have its issues? Yeah. It doesn't name the actual ancestor. We don't know which number Phantom it is. It just is the Phantom of 1740.
I
So I guess it
I
doesn't bog
just, I
down the
just
law.
want to, I just want to interrupt you for a sec there, Steve, because this was something I
Yeah.
was going to say. Is I haven't read this story before this, but I wonder if the original did name the Phantom of the marriage of the Phantom, but it doesn't fit in the official.
That
Uh,
could be an issue.
so maybe
That's what I was going to think.
they've,
It doesn't get bogged down in law. It doesn't say, oh, is it the
yeah,
second or
maybe
third? And
they've,
then people say, oh no, it was supposed to be the fifth. But
yeah, maybe
the
they've
Phantom
made
of
it
1740.
ambiguous. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe, but yeah, interesting.
There is perhaps an inadvertent clue right at the end where the Phantom says something about fulfilling his grandfather's oath, which makes it sound like this could be the third Phantom, which wouldn't tie in with
With
the
dates.
17th.
Well,
Yeah.
from memory, there was the fourth Phantom who, according to one story, married like 4 or 5 different women.
Hmm.
Um, he was the unlucky Phantom, which, yeah, which probably makes sense. So maybe, but look, reading a lot into it.
Yes.
Don't want to get bogged down too much, but it's interesting. That's what I was thinking, and it was interesting you picked up on that as well, Steve. So,
The way that this felt to me in terms of it being written, and you're right, it's not certainly far from the worst Fratelli Spada story we've ever read. It did strike me that perhaps the artists have gone through a bunch of Cy Barry scenes that they like. They've cut up the Sunday or the daily papers. They've got all of the panels that they really like, and then they shuffled them around and gone, look, let's put them in this order and make this story because there's a lot of very familiar
yeah,
panels I guess if they were publishing this in 2020, in the 2020s, people would be talking about comic swipes and all the rest of it. There's lots of familiar Cybarry scenes, and it's just been kind of restructured so that we've got a pirate island and we've got a governor's daughter and we've got a fight against a crocodile, and let's just all work that in together somehow.
Yeah,
It's page
Phantom
here,
hiding in the
page
bushes.
7.
You got the Phantom hiding in the bushes. You got the sword fights. You've got coming through the window. You've got all you've got him being rough and roughnecks by donking their heads together. You got all these classic tropes.
Yeah,
it's hard not to like, unfortunately.
Tend to agree. Page 7. There's a few panels that I recognize. I can't place the original story, but yeah, there's some panels I recognize in there.
Yeah. All right, the second story in the book is our prose story that sort of breaks between the two comic stories. A Madman in the Jungle, Steve.
Okay, so Madman in the Jungle, which is, like Dan said, the prose story by an unknown Fratelli Spada creator. Mr. Blatty, a millionaire on his way to Bengala for some reason, which hasn't been explained, with a couple of nurses, crashes into the jungle and goes crazy. Can the Phantom knock some sense into the man and allow the nurses and the pilot to come down from the tree that they find themselves stuck in? Of course he can. Mr. Bloody isn't much of a threat, but will we ever find out what sent him off the rails? Now, usually I leave these on a bit of a cliffhanger, but I didn't like it. So I thought like a high school kid could have written this story, and we never find out why Mr. Bloody went off the rails, and these guys are just stuck up a tree. It was a bit fun reading his acrobatic skydiving out of a plane without a parachute, but that's about it.
I had a very similar thought in terms of, this reads like some fan fiction that might have been produced in my year 8 English class, and I probably have some notes on his first draft.
I'm going to be a little bit nicer than used to. You're right, it does read like fan fiction, but I enjoy a little bit of prose. I'm curious on what the process that Dudley and the team went through, because I wonder how much is it a and Stephen, as someone who's studied theology, you would understand this. Have they done the word by word translation, or have they gone more of the message type where they've kind of done where they've kind of like English fired it to make a little bit more sense, or they try to remain true word by word. So I'm intrigued on the process for that.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Jim. I was going to say something at the end after we've done the 4 stories. I don't know about the whole thing, but there's definitely one phrase or one title there that they definitely do a literal translation rather than what it actually means, and I'll talk about that one later.
Well, we are talking about this story, though, Dudley does address a little bit of that translation issue in his message from the publisher, that this, in Phantom Wiki, this story is listed as a fool in the jungle, but by Dudley's translation comes out as a madman in the jungle, and he thought that was a better choice. So this is clearly something that Dudley, you talk about the process, Germ, Dudley and the team at Frew have translated this from the Italian, and this is how it's pumped out.
Yeah. I would agree
I think Madman works better.
Yeah, so
it's characterization of Mr. Blatter rather than Fool.
And that may be just a 50 years later thing. Maybe 50 years ago, Fool was more easily understood as this having gone mad type thing.
And words change meaning as well. Like, without trying to sound controversial, but the word gay has changed meaning as well. So
heaps of
Jerm, you said you don't mind the prose stories. I know Moonstone published those longer prose comics. I don't tend to read those. Having a short 2-pager, I can deal with that. I don't want a whole comic full of prose. Moving on. The Disappearance of Carina by unknown Fratelli Spada writer, and once again Giorgio Cambiotti and Lamberto Lombardi as the artists. Diana, the Phantom's sweetheart, is back in town. But not everyone in the jungle is quite so lucky in love. One of the Banda pygmies, Callow, comes to the Phantom in tears as his city girlfriend Carina is missing. Has Carina been kidnapped? Has she just had enough of this jungle boy and is giving him the cold shoulder? Or is there something a bit mischievous about Karina's dad? He doesn't seem overly concerned about his missing daughter. What do you guys think? Read it and find out.
Your synopsis actually make the story actually sound better than what it actually is.
100%.
Do try to polish things up. I didn't try to polish up that last one with the madman, but this one, I didn't mind it.
Look, for me, the message is good. I enjoy the message, and I think reading the publisher from the message from the publisher, I think Dudley probably agrees with that, because he talks a fair bit about the message of this story. It's in where they kind of dwell on the 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 interactions between the different tribes people and stuff like that. And it's probably something that hasn't been touched upon in many Leaf Fork stories or even Team Phantom End stories. So I like how they've actually done that in this. Again, the story could have been better. I don't think the art in this story is as good as the last or as the first story. The way it's a bit clumsily written about how you've got the bander where he's been trapped and stuff like that. That's a little bit clumsy, but I like the message. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that clumsy is probably right. I haven't counted the pages, but it felt like a story that could have been 4 pages shorter and still just been a bit punchier. That's all.
That's probably about it. It's just been padded out a bit too much.
Yeah, so you were talking about the artwork. This brother here, it reminds me from the Cy Barry story, The Killers. And what's the girlfriend's name again? Is it Karina? She looks like Luaga's daughter-in-law, General Babubu's daughter, who married Luaga's son. I think it's Lon. I think is her name. She looks a bit like that. On YouTube, I'll dig out the references as much as I can and include them here so you can have a bit of a look at them as well. But yeah, it was fun trying to go, oh, he looks familiar. Oh, that's from that story, or that panel's from there. And if anyone picks up any of these panels, please let us know because yeah, it's always nice to be able to see it as well. But yeah, it's this one here, the crack. The Phantom going through the what would you call it, the wall. That reminds me of a panel from the Hydra, I believe it is, where he goes through there. And some of this underwater scenes is also reminds me of the bad guy. I think it's or Mum or something like that. The guy who pretends he's mute or is mute, being killed in an underwater way as well. So I reckon there's a couple of panels that look familiar.
Jerm, your encyclopedic and photographic knowledge of Phantom stories never ceases to amaze me, mate. I would have just said, oh yeah, that kind of looks familiar. But you actually naming stories, that's incredible. Well done.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'm right. Well, I'll find out when I do the editing. Otherwise, I'll just delete that whole section.
All right. Well, the issue finishes with another prose story called "The Flood," and we don't know who wrote this one either. But let's see if you can tease this one in a way that makes people want to read it, Steve.
Okay, so 2 boys are stuck in a raging, flooding river with no means of escape. No one can get to them. No one but the Phantom. But the river is raging and is mighty powerful. The Phantom would need the strength of 10 tigers to get the 2 boys out, to get the 2 boys as well as himself back to safety. Will he do it, or is a flooded river too much even for the legendary skill and strength of the Phantom?
This story is okay. I did enjoy it. Like, maybe it's just because I'm getting old and I'm actually picking up books and actually reading books now in my old age. But like I was reading this and I found myself reading it at a faster pace to try and figure out what was happening. So I I think this prose story was better than the last prose story.
Yeah, there was more action packed, and like you said, I know that happens with when I'm reading a novel and it's an action scene or something happening in a novel, it's short, sharp, and punchy, and you read it that way, and that could also be the sentence structure. But that I felt that happened with this story as well. I could redo my blurb, if you like, my synopsis. I might, which is a bit more in tune with the story. Two boys are stuck in a raging, flooding river with no means of escape. No one can get to them, no one but the masked man. But the river is raging and is mighty powerful. The masked man will need the strength of 10 tigers to get the two boys as well as himself back to safety. Will he do it, or is a flooded river too much even for the legendary skill and strength of the masked man? My one issue with, I often have a number of issues with Fratelli Spada stories. With this collection in particular, now the first story, the first, what was it called again? The Island
The
of Rada
full
Mandi.
or the net. Oh, yeah.
No, the Island of Rada Mandi. From memory, use the Phantom a lot. The term the Phantom a lot more. But in the others, they tend to use the masked man as opposed to the Phantom. Now, in Italian, the Phantom has traditionally been published as l'uomo mascherato, or mascherato, sorry, which translated means the masked man. So when you said before about is it a literal translation or the vibe of it, or phrases of it, when it comes to the name of the Phantom, they've used a literal translation for much of it by saying the masked man rather than the Phantom. And I remember we're having issues and talking about this in other Fratelli Spada stories. So it irks me because it's a simple, all right, like in Italian or in Italy, they call him l'uomo mascherato. Here in Australia, here in English, we call him the Phantom. So just change the term.
It reads a little bit sloppy. Someone translated it and then they didn't go back and, oh, the masked man, yeah. But it's like, yeah, there's just not that extra level of editorial or extra level of care. So no, it's a good point that you make. Now, Steve, you've been talking about how you don't like Fratelli Spada stories. As this issue, which we've got the issue, it's all in color, the paper's good quality, the print job's good, the cover, which we've commented on and we like and stuff like that. Do you like the issue or no?
I actually like the issue, and I think I said it, a few minutes ago. It's unfortunately it's hard not to like. It's actually an enjoyable issue, which it's short, it's punchy. I don't want to see it all the time. It's one of the better Fratelli Spada collections that we've got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair synopsis. I'd have a similar sort of a overview with it. The issues behind the 8 ball from the start, when you realise that it's going to be Fratelli Spada stories issue, and it's not necessarily, I'm not going to sit down and dive into that straight away. But I was kind of serious at the start. I said it's a good popcorn type comic book where you can just sort of flick through it, not get a lot of substance out of it, but it's interesting to see how it was published back in the day. I wouldn't want to, if we were going to publish 26 regular issues, I don't want to see 14 of them be this type of thing. But 2 or 3 is probably okay.
I think these are great backup stories. Whether like the proses or the other stories and all that, they're great as page fillers or backups or stuff like that. But collecting them as a single issue, I don't think works because you've got the Christmas issue in color, then you've got this one, and then you've got the Frew annual, which is going to be themed with a little bit of color, which we'll be reviewing in episode 299C. It just kind of feels like you lose a little bit of momentum. I'm not sure I agree with Frew publishing Fratelli Spada stories, more Fratelli Spada stories, but if they are, for whatever reason, I've got my personal opinions. If they are, can we do them as backup stories and not single standalone collections like this? That's my big concern.
Yeah, well, it seems that Dudley has hinted that we will see more Fratelli Spada stories in 2025, and well, I can't wait to see more of these historical publications see the light of day. It's a great example for modern readers to see how the fandom has been depicted worldwide throughout history. And as a bonus, it's a great way for Frew to save money by just reprinting stories from Renee's collection. Now, hopefully, they can find some diamonds in there. Otherwise, Dudley's going to have a heck of a job polishing some of these proverbial things.
Oh, look, it's a great point, and Dudley's been quite open about it in the message from the publisher that these are books that were initially stories that were initially slated for the Phantoms World Series, but are now in Renee's private collection and are coming back to the regular series, and maybe that's why we'll see a few more of them. I probably disagree with you, Germ, there when you say, oh, you'd rather see them sprinkled out as fillers stories for other books. I actually like the idea that they are self-contained, and if you like your Fratelli Spadas, then great, you can pick that one up. If you don't, you just don't have to pick that book up. You don't have to sort of read around them in other books. I'd rather see, if I'm picking up whatever up to issue 1993 or whatever it might be after the annual, I don't want to have a really good quality 20-pager at the front and then go, oh, here's some rubbish at the back. So as we've said, this isn't as rubbish as it might have otherwise been, as some of the other stuff we've seen. But I'd probably keep them together.
Okay, interesting. Fans, if you've got any opinions, drop us an email or comment on YouTube or social media, or, how you prefer. Would you just not want to see him at all? Or if we have to see him, do you want him sprinkled or all clumped together like what Dan said?
Yeah, have them like a bandit, all together in one hit. Turn the page, it's gone.
All right. Now, as a result of 1988 being delayed, are you guys getting off put a little bit by the fact that Frew issues now sound like years that you lived in?
Yes. We're talking about the big difference between, you said before, 1986 and 1987. I was going through music, fashion.
Yeah.
I had all sorts of things going through my head when you mentioned that before.
Absolutely. So 1988 has been
Surely,
delayed.
Dan, you've been doing this for the last 30 years anyway. So 1961 issue, 1962 issue.
We're now getting into years that I can remember, Germ. So anyway, Frew issue 1988, which is the 2025 annual, as we've said, has been delayed. It's got the monster theme. We're looking forward to it, but we won't waste too much time talking about it now because we're going to waste plenty of time talking about it in depth in the next episode. So we're going to go from here to the comic reviews from overseas. Look, we are continually looking for reviewers who can review comics. We said in the tail of the tape from the 2024 review how many different countries are now publishing fan comics, and we're certainly not able to do reviews of all of them. But if you are living in a country that you're not hearing from in the podcast at the moment and you'd like to get your nation and your comics represented, places that we're missing in particular at the moment are like Finland, France, Italy, lots of locations around the world that publish the fandom that we're not hearing from. So if you'd like to join the team with some regular reviews, please contact us via chroniclechamber@gmail.com. On the emails is probably the best way there. So having said that, let's switch to some people who have contacted us in regard to that. We're going to hear from Scott from the United States, Ivan from Norway, Christian from Germany, as they review comics that have been released in their countries. Take it away, guys.
It's got a nice, beautiful cover here done by Calafiore. This giant Crotan with his hand reaching out and grabbing, Rick and Flash, who are on this little sky cycle thing going on here. Kind of a neat cover, and unlike a lot of comic books you might find on the stands, this cover actually directly relates to what's in the issue, which I appreciate as a comic book fan. If you've been following this series, Defenders of the Earth issue 3 ended with Rick discovering a dark secret. He learned that Octon, one of Ming the Merciless's old allies, is still alive, and he is commanding an army of ice robots, which were the main army that Ming the Merciless used in the original Defenders of the Earth cartoon series and in the original miniseries. So Rick is shocked and in horror. He has this screeching face here, which, the art in this series, I like it overall. It's not my favorite. I do feel like Rick here looks a little aged up with the way he's screaming. I feel like there's too much lines and details that make him look more like an older man than a teen, but that's just a small gripe. Something I have been enjoying about this series are the colors. I love kind of the bright, vibrant colors, and you'll see that throughout the issue as I flip through. They really kind of capture both the brightness of the cartoon, but also something that feels a little more modern and sleek. So you don't have like these childish bright colors that feel like an 80s cartoon. You have something that kind of meets you in the middle with more of the serious tone that a lot of modern comics have. So we have, Rick trying to hold his own against these ice robots. Zuffy, the animal from the cartoon series and the original miniseries, jumps in to save the day. If you haven't been up on this series, Zuffy is aged up a little bit too. The creature's bigger than he was in the cartoon because he was like a little baby in the cartoon and some years have passed. So they do age up Zuffy. Flash Gordon busts in through the window. We get a nice little action scene here. I love the lettering here of Dad as he leaps into action. Flash Gordon's finally coming to be the hero that we've been expecting him to be for the past 3 issues, even though, he really hasn't. He's been mostly corporate Flash for the past 3 issues as he's been working with Baron Atomics, which is a company run by Crotan. And, they're providing a lot of the energy for the world, trying to help out humanity. But as we've seen with Rick Gordon's storyline the past few issues, that's not the case. They're up to no good. Kind of obvious. But Flash and his son reconnect, and they're going to escape here. They leap out the window. For those who have read the republished Defenders of the Earth miniseries that was originally put out by Marvel in the 80s, and it was beautifully restored and reprinted by Mad Cave Studios this past year. This is a nod to the cover of the republished version from Mad Cave. And so it's a fun little, bit of eye candy, I suppose. But they hop on to basically what the cover of this issue is. Here's this little, Selectric Sky Skier is what they call it. And it's a lot of this issue is devoted to this chase. They're catching up. Rick is updating his dad on what he's discovered, and Flash is, having his suspicions confirmed. There's an old warship of Ming the Merciless is coming after them. So there is a little bit of this, back and forth of, well, is Ming still alive? I feel like it's the tease they're trying to go for, but all roads and everything is pointed to Crotan so far as being the big bad this series, that it feels a little bit like wasting time when they keep trying to suggest that Ming might still be alive. This is kind of the big action shot of the issue right here. Here they are being chased by that warship in the middle. It's very cinematic. We have all these close-ups up top and down at the bottom where they're, uniting over the fact that Dale Arden, who was killed off in the pilot of the cartoon and the first 2 issues of the original miniseries, her consciousness was put into a computer, and we learn that program is still running and still alive. So Dale is still with us. And a lot of this is just throughout all the action, just kind of updating the main beats of the story with Crotan and whatever this Ice Station Earth deal is and everything going on there. They get in touch with Mandrake the Magician, telling him that they're on their way and they got to hide out because, well, they're being attacked and they need a place to lay low. And as they're flying away, they see this giant hologram of Crotan, which there's your cover shot right there. It's pointing to this, and Crotan's kind of playing dumb while they zip off. And it's another one of those teases of, well, was Crotan really behind it, or is it Ming? Or maybe it's Ming's mind in Crotan's body. Who knows? At Mandrake the Magician's mansion, Mandrake and Phantom are waiting for Flash's arrival. And this is kind of so for Phantom fans, a lot of people at Chronicle Chamber, the main interest there is the Phantom. And he's in this issue a very small amount. This issue 3 was like the big Phantom issue, but for the most part of the series, it's focused on other characters. There's a heavy focus on Rick Gordon. So, we finally get some shots of the Phantom, who basically just says he doesn't trust Crotan, never has. Flash arrives. They all get up to speed on what's going on. They inform the president. Rick unveils that he learned that it seems like Crotan is turning humans into ice soldiers. And Phantom is kind of, he's a sourpuss this issue, I guess you could say, because if you haven't been reading the series, or if you have, you know that the Phantom is technically a ghost. He literally is the ghost who walks. And so he's trapped in Mandrake the Magician's mansion because Mandrake did some magic to keep him around. And so he's tethered to this mansion and can't leave. Kind of a weird plot development there. But they get in contact with Lothar, who went to the Five Nations. We saw him last issue and sporadically throughout the past 3 issues. He's been in this series, it feels like, the least so far, but he basically tells them, hey, you can crash at my pad. We can lay low here. You're clear to come. So this is all kind of a vehicle to get everybody to go to the Five Nations. And we have a nice little tease here as they're walking on a Mandrake's mansion. We have this beautiful rendition of Flash Gordon's original rocket ship created by Dr. Zarkov. Kind of a cool nod. I really appreciate that as a fan of the Flash. But basically this is where last issue's big plot reveal comes into play. Phantom wants to tell Flash everything that's happened to him and why he hasn't been around and why he's just been hanging out at Mandrake the Magician's mansion, and Mandrake's kind of shushing him up, basically, all to point to, yes, it's true, the Phantom can't leave this mansion, but Mandrake can just turn the mansion into a tiny little thing that he can shove in his pocket, which means that whole plot device of Phantom being trapped in this house is kind of no more. Now the Phantom can go anywhere. So we spent a lot of time with something that was solved in like 2 seconds, which is kind of convenient, and it really kind of makes... I go back and forth on this because I'm not quite sure what the point is. We are only midway through this series. So, where is this going in terms of the Ghost Who Walks storyline? It's hard to say. We have 4 more issues to go, but anyways, they're off to the Five Nations. Meanwhile, we get a shot of Garrick's up here, and then we get Crotan, who now fully fledged the bad guy, revealing that he has the body of Dale Arden just floating around in a tube. And so that's, what we'll find out more about, hopefully next issue. It looks like issue 5 will be a little bit more Phantom focused. We have 2 of them in the cover here. So really looking forward to that. Maybe that'll be something that kind of redeems the Phantom storyline in this series so far. Because there hasn't been much. And that's kind of the big thing with this is, where are we going? What's going to happen with the Phantom? This whole thing about him literally being a ghost, it just kind of came out of nowhere. But I guess we'll find out in the next 4 issues.
To another Phantomen review by Ivan Pedersen, aka IP Comics. This is the last issue for this year, 25-26, and it's a double 100 pages. The stories are Resan Hem, Togligan, Mørkets Vaktere. One new from the US papers, and 2 reprints. And some julespecial. It's strange stories. I'm not sure if it is a Phantom story, so you have to decide for yourself. Nice cover, and we will have a look at who did that. Omslag Henry Johannes. Yeah. And it's classic positure of the Phantom. Very strong. And here you can see the last issue of the Himalaya series from the papers. Kit is on its way home. And you also see here, let's see, there was some some strips by other artists because the regular artist was sick. Manley had some problem and had some fill-in for some weeks. It's good to help each other. Weigel. And the classic Tågligan from 1987, black and white this time. Rex is still John. Good art, bad colors. That was a joke. And Mørkets Vaktere. It's a daily strip from 1977. And it's Falcon Cyberry. It's recolored for this edition. Only regret is that the colors is a bit dark, so you see here it's very dark, but it's mainly a problem with the printing. I'm sure the colorist did his best. It's not easy, I know. And then we have this futuristic science fiction story. I think they have the Phantom in mind, but he is not present. However, you can see the I don't think I will reveal too much. It's up to you to find the truth. And then there is next issue. Next year is jubileum, anniversary, perhaps, and we will see more reprints and about news stories and such. Jubileums extra. Homeros Lyra. That's a classic. Syngpiratenes Skatt is also a classic, and you will get the utgivningsposter for 2025, and you can add for give away some comics for as a Christmas gift. Why not? And the usual ad for the 3 books put out by Egmont this year. Älskade Pirat, Djungelpojken Rex, and The Vandrande Vålnaden.
Today I review the Zauberstern comic number 16, 100 pages for $10, and we start with the cover from Salvi Luto and Eugenio Matozzi. We have 4 stories in it. Gefahr der verbotenen Stadt, Teil 3 und 4. Die Python schlägt zu, Insel des Grauens, in English. Duel in the Skies, Freefall, Justice for the Python, and Croco Island West. And we start with Duel in the Skies. Duel in the Skies is a 2015 Hermes story from Peter David and art by Sal Velluto. It's just available in Brazil, Germany, United States. Better look of it. And it continues from the Zauberstern magazine number 15. And we have the next story, part 4. It's Freefall. It's the same art as the other thing also released in Brazil, Germany, United States. The art is awesome. I like it very much. I like the painting and how he drew it, and I like it very much, really. Then we have The Python schlägt zu. It's Justice for the Python. It's a daily story from Tony DePaul and Paul Ryan. It's a 224th story and some advertising and a nice big poster. Really cool advertising and a better look from the daily story. And like I said, this comic is released in Australia, the Bahamas, Colombia, Finland, Germany, India, Jamaica, Norway, Sweden, Turkey and United States. And also the paper of the comic is very good. The printing is awesome. Very clear and awesome printing. And Zauberstern did a really cool job with it. And then we have Insel des Grauens, Croco Island West. And again, a daily story from Tony DePaul and Paul Ryan. It's a 225th story, and also a better look of it. And again, it's a really cool magazine for this price. And Zauberstern brings more comics with Phantom Special and Phantom the album. Can't wait to get more stuff with it. And we have the backside. Welcome to Chronicle Chamber. My name is Chris. Today I review the Phantom Spezial Zauberstern comic #1. It's called February 2025, but it's released end of January. And we start with Voduro's Geheimnis, Voduro's Secret. It's a 153 story, Sunday story, and it's a full color comic from Claes Remerti and Graham Nolan. I like the art from Nolan very much. The paper is Zauberstern quality, always good. This face, it's cool. And I like the story very much. And Zauberstern did another magazine called The Album, which comes out next month, I think. And the Zauberstern Phantom Spezial comic is released all 2 months. And we take a better look at the story and the comic. The printing is very sharp and very detailed, and it's nice to read. Yeah, Phantom #2 comes out end of March this year. And we have Das Löwenkopfäffchen, Head Tamarine, the 154th story. It's released in Australia, Brazil, Finland, India, Norway, Sweden, Turkey, United States. And Voduro's Secret is also released in and the other states, like the second comic. And the same quality and printing as the first story, and the story I like too, and I think Zauberstern did a fantastic job. The magazine has 62 pages and costs €8 here, and we have some information about the Zauberstern, and about Graham Nolan from Wikipedia with a picture of Mr. Nolan. Yeah, and the new back cover for Phantom Spezial. All 2 months new. All German first exclusive releases. Thanks for watching. Today we have Zack Comics with Phantom, die verschwundenen Bassjumper, Captured from Above and Dangerous Water, die verschwundenen Bassjumper und gefährliche Wasser, Zack Edition for 16 euros. And the story is from Bernd Frenz for the Swedish Fantomen magazine. The first story was released in Fantomen 13 in the year 2023, and it's an awesome comic and story. The printing is awesome. The paper is a glossy, very fine paper. It's awesome when you touch it, and when you read the comic, the quality is very fine. The story is also very, very good, and I enjoyed it very much. And now we have Dangerous Waters. Also a nice story and a cool Phantom with private outfit, and I like it very much. And Bernd and Undone make a very, very cool story, and it's nice to read. And I say it, high price is okay for this quality. It's my opinion, but like I said, it costs 16 euros for 46 comic pages, and the cover from the Missing Bass Jumper story and Dangerous Waters cover is also in the magazine. Then we have some information how Bernd gets to the Phantomen magazine, and some art experiences, and how he gets the ideas of the comics. Very cool infos, and can't wait to see the next magazine. Some biography, Bernd Frenz and Janus Undone. And yeah, it's a really nice magazine. Some advertising for Zauberstern Comics with a new album and a new special Phantom magazine in the next year. Yeah, and the back cover. Then the side also printed. It's a very nice glued comic. Thanks for watching.
All right. Thank you so much. And so good to hear about the Phantom comics from all over the world in this Comics Review podcast. Now, we are going to head off shortly, but before we go, just one last reminder about episode 300, which is coming up soon. That date again is Saturday, the 8th of February. It might be Sunday, the 9th of February, depending on where you live in the world. It might be Friday, the 7th, depending on where you live in the world. Check your date and time converter. It's 7:30 p.m. on the 8th of February, Eastern Standard Time, New York time. So make sure you check out that and go to the website to see how you can be involved in that recording. Thanks so much again for listening or watching, listening to us or watching us. As always, the website is chroniclechamber.com and our email is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your opinions on by those channels or any of the social media platforms. Subscribe via any of all of that stuff that I just said. Join us on our Discord channel. We do not have a Discord channel. Don't go to that.
There's an in-joke on that one. After the end of our last podcast, my son came up and he was talking about the way that I did the outro, and he also mentioned, you need to get a Discord channels. No, we don't.
We do comment on the Reddit channel, which is actually kind of fun.
We have a Reddit?
No, we don't have a Reddit, but there is a Reddit page, and I've signed up and joined some of the conversations and post our links and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if there's any Reddit people out there. That's definitely a generational thing. But I've enjoyed some of the chats there. I actually used one of the topics for a subject that we posted on our Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. So yeah.
Sorry for hijacking your outro there, Dan, but
No, that's Look, all of that said, thanks for listening. Happy fandoming.
Happy fandoming all.
Happy fandoming.
Upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die. The Phantom, the ghost who walks. The Phantom. Enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom.